Another member of the Texas Democrat delegation that fled the state of Texas to obstruct a vote on election integrity has tested positive for COVID-19, bringing the total number of cases among the members up to 6. Now they're refusing to give any additional updates on their vaccine status, telling NBC News, quote, "We're focused on our daily testing, following and going beyond CDC guidelines, social distancing, and wearing masks as much as possible. We're just not going to release daily counts." Let's welcome in Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. Ken, what are we to make of this? MSNBC hosted the Texas House Democrats in a town hall where they continue to defy their calls to go back and do their job. They say they're making great sacrifices. I think there are many Americans all across this country who would beg to differ.
Well, first of all, it's a little ironic that they left with a six-pack of Miller Lite, and now they have 6 cases of corona. But I will say that this is pretty sad that they are leaving supposedly to protect voting, and they're preventing over 150 legislators from doing their job as elected representatives to actually vote on legislation that the people of Texas want. And so it's just a little ironic that this is what they're supposedly fighting for, but they're a minority group stopping the Texas legislature from functioning the way it's supposed to per the Constitution and per the voters of Texas.
Now, you're the chief law enforcement official in the state of Texas. Talk to us a little bit about what, if any, are the legal actions within your purview, within the purview of the state of Texas, to actually get them back from our nation's capital to do their job, or at the very least hold them accountable for not doing so.
So there's a reason they left the state. If they were inside of our jurisdiction, they could be arrested, brought back to the House, and basically forced to at least be on the House to create a quorum. Whether they voted for or against certain legislation would be up to them, or not vote at all. But they would be forced to at least do their job. When you leave the state, we lose jurisdiction to arrest people, and certainly we're not going to get cooperation from Washington, D.C., the swamp, to get our people back. So they know what they're doing. The problem is, I don't know what the end game is, because if they want to live in Texas, eventually they're going to have to vote. So I don't really understand the end game other than to create a lot of publicity for them and prevent legislation from moving forward in a timely fashion, and also impact the families of other legislators who otherwise would be working. Instead, they're here making $600 a month. So they're having a very negative impact on the lives of these other legislators who are just trying to do their job.
Absolutely. I want to switch gears from the political problems to the human problems facing the American people. We have a crisis on the southern border that the Biden administration refuses to acknowledge. Border Patrol has encountered nearly 190,000 migrants at the southern border in June alone. Almost 40,000 gotaways a month is what we're seeing right now. We know those are people who cross the border without being apprehended. We know the total number of gotaways clearly exceeds at this point over 300,000 by most estimates, and those are just the ones that got away that we know got away. How do we get people to take this border crisis seriously? Because in the balance is all this fentanyl that we know is being fueled by China, coming across our border and fueling an overdose outbreak like we've never seen before.
So amazing that we had policies in place that President Trump had put in place after policies that didn't work under the Obama administration. So you'll remember we had the same caravan issue, just not as bad, when Obama was in office. So President Trump created the Stay in Mexico policy to deal with the loopholes related to asylum. He stopped the catch and release. He started building a wall. All of these policies began to really take hold and really work. And so you can go back and look at the numbers from last year versus now. We have the worst border crisis we've ever had. The Biden administration has empowered the cartels and continues to do so at the expense of the American people, at the expense of Texans for sure, at the expense of even the immigrants who are now subject to cartel control, who have to pay them, who are beholden to the cartels, and then at the expense of Americans who are now suffering because we have this massive infusion of drugs into our country, and then this massive infusion of human trafficking and sex trafficking. This is all on the Biden administration, and they chose it. They are empowering the cartels to do all of this.
Well, to that point, right, he has the crisis they won't acknowledge, which is the crisis of the southern border, the crisis they can't stop talking about, which is COVID-19 and the increase in actual contraction. You have Senator Ted Cruz, who basically said if we have, to the extent that we do have rising rates of COVID-19 in Texas, it's driven in part by these people who are streaming across the border illegally, effectively at the behest of the Biden administration, as if somehow that people coming from low vaccinated countries come across our border and are inoculated because of their claims of asylum. What are your thoughts here? Because it seems pretty like common sense to a lot of people that if you've got hundreds of thousands of people evading capture and streaming into the country who from places where we don't really have vaccines, that's probably going to have an impact on the actual COVID rates in the region.
Well, the hypocrisy is incredible. First of all, we have been a fairly open state, and obviously our incidence of COVID has been going way down. And the Biden administration allows people to cross the border without knowing whether they're safe and whether they're carrying COVID or other diseases. They're not prevented from coming here. The rules that President Trump put in place to protect us are being disregarded, and yet the Biden administration claims that they care about this issue. So it's really hard to look them in the face and say that they care about the spread of COVID in my state and other states when they're allowing people to come across the border who are infected.
All right, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.